She is my co-host, and she will be watching the chat today and monitoring and managing Q&A at the end of this session.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Linda.
Mm-hmm.
We are joined today by Chris Collier. He is the Vice President of Marketing for EHS Insight. He has over 18 years of marketing experience, often working for mid-sized private equity-backed firms. For over 10 years, Chris was directly involved in demand generation, which is why he's familiar with the topic that we're discussing today. In his current executive role, he actually coaches his staff on how to best present this data to the board of directors and the other management team. Chris is here in the Tri-Cities with us, lives a couple miles down the road from me, and has lots of experience in the local training and safety world here in the Tri-Cities. So you may have seen him in other areas. Chris, thank you for joining us. I'm going to turn it over to you and see how entertaining you are today on this Wednesday.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, shortly before we jumped on for a tech check, my basement flooded. So, little bit flustered, but we're going to do this. We're going to have fun. I want to give a couple shout outs to, hi, Susan. Hi, Angela. Susan's youngest boy is hopefully going to be working for me come June. He's a marketing degree senior at Washington State University as well. So hi, it's good to see you. I'm okay with anybody interrupting while I'm speaking. I do like kind of that tossing the ball back and forth as of having my discussion. This is definitely something that is just definitely a little more entertaining. And also, if you're having that thought at that one time and you need to ask a question, I'm okay with interrupting. So I interrupt everybody else. So I expect everyone to give me the same. With that, I am going to share my screen and hopefully everybody can see it. Okay, Jess is giving me the thumbs up.
We can see it. We're good.
Cool. So I'm going to go a little bit wider on that for myself. Bring up my presenter view. So in the last 20 years, marketing has probably changed more than I would say any other discipline, specifically when it comes to business. Sad part is, especially when I'm speaking with Susan's son and what they're teaching him at Washington State University, they're actually not doing a whole lot of high level, and they're expecting people to get their masters to kind of do a lot of this. But in my world, I think everybody, and you should start learning right out of college when you're getting ingrained into a company, because that gives you a better job for prioritization, quick wins. It's a lift for morale. Is what we're doing actually working? And so this is why I like to. I'm also a self-proclaimed data nerd. So is everybody in my team. And nothing excites me more than seeing numbers go in the right direction, especially when you're directly involved with making that happen. I promise, here's the agenda. I promise it's not going to be boring, where at the end of the hour, you're going to feel like 84 years just went by, like Rose in Titanic. But here's the quick sections that we're going to be running down. Why marketing analytics matter, just analytics as a whole too, because there's also a lot of gray space of, is this for the sales team? Is this for the marketing team? Is this for customer success? What about my bottom line, my top line? There's just a lot of things that we will go over. Data importance to the organizational leaders. I like to lead with that because that's pretty much the whole topic of this. And I want to start with the why. Simon Sinek says it best, is you always start with why and then work your way backwards. Key metrics and KPIs. We'll go over kind of what I think is important. I'd also like to have people bring up and ask questions of what they think is important, what they don't think is important, because there's also a lot of, especially I've sat in boardrooms where you've got managing partners asking, well, how many clicks and impressions are our website getting? And I'm just shaking my head saying those are just the wrong KPIs that we should be focusing on, because they don't really tell the health of everything else. And then making data-driven decisions based on that information. How do you go through all those numbers and start to collate it and organize it in order to make these decisions that are ultimately going to decide what marketing campaigns and programs and communications platforms and programs you're going to be launching. So, any questions? Everybody's bored
Haven't
already.
seen anything pop in yet, so
Nope.
You're doing good.
Okay. So, disclaimer: we did kind of lead off that about GA4. If you thought you were going to come in here and just be given kind of the rundown on GA4, I'm not. Why? First off, I actually think what Google did was kind of a step backwards from an interface standpoint. Now, the great thing though is now it does give you the ability to track data over multiple different platforms with the use of Google Tag Manager and some other integrations you can do. But we'll dive deeper into what I and a lot of other marketing professionals in my circle have been doing in order to see the data in the simplistic way that it was presented with the UA platform of Google Analytics versus the new GA4 platform. So why marketing analytics matter? I mean, the importance of data-driven marketing is at the core function. It's important to any segment of marketing as a whole. So that's content strategy, SEO, SEM. I mean, even it could modify different sales strategies if we're seeing pipeline flowing in correctly. What are leads looking like? What's the cost per lead? What's your customer acquisition cost? What's the lifetime value? And so there's just a lot of data that can be used to make adequate and appropriate decisions as you're going on to make sure that you're ultimately adding to the bottom line in revenue year over year. Measuring ROI and performance. So the channels you're marketing in creating revenue, or is it that endless pit of cash that gets lost? A real life example is I've only been in my seat here at EHS Insight for a little over 90 days. So I just had my first full quarter with the team. And luckily I walked into a situation where my RevOps and growth manager has a master's in analytics, and he had everything set up to where I could come in and I could look really smart, because you could go through and start slicing and dicing the data and seeing, well, why are we spending money in this particular area? Because the actual case study is we'd spent $1.1 million in Capterra last year. Capterra is in the Gartner suite of services, but it didn't equate to the amount of revenue that we'd brought in. It brought in a lot of pipeline. It had a lot of positive MQLs, or marketing qualified leads. But ultimately, I was able to dive in there and go, we're not adding anything to the revenue side. And so we're so far underwater and everything's so red that we just need to cut ties ASAP. And so that's just one example of, are you able to measure that ROI and performance so you can be putting your eggs in the appropriate baskets and utilizing your budget, which is not finite, or it is finite, not infinite, and make sure you're getting the best bang of your buck. Another one is understanding customer behavior. So through personalization and targeting, it's 2024. And especially in SaaS sales, where I think about 2 years ago, they said SaaS is dead. It's not necessarily dead, but as far as in the software as a service industry, everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody's trying to scream at the top of their lungs to look at me, look at me, look at me. But ultimately, with modern day marketing, you've got to be able to segment your target audience, personalize that content. So when they're actually reading about your content, or they're researching for a particular product at that right time, you're serving up that information and that content in just in time kind of scenario, just so you're top of mind. But you can't do that if you're doing a shotgun approach versus being extremely, what I like to say, kind of the laser targeted approach. Competitive analysis advantage too. So there's tools with SEMrush and a lot of these other platforms that you can check competitive web analytics. What are they spending for SEM? What is their social media traffic? Sometimes you can get as granular as checking what their cost per lead is. And so with some of these different analytics, you can go like, well, in the grand scheme of things for my direct competitors, am I healthy? Am I lagging? Am I ahead of the game? What can I do to put my brand ahead of them? So when people are looking for my particular product or service, I'm in front of them and not necessarily my competitors. I'll do a quick pause before, if anybody's got questions. Okay, that must be interesting.
We do have a question. What are the platforms that your teams are currently using? So you mentioned that your demand gen or revenue ops guy had it all set up. What platforms are you currently using? What have you used in the past that others should look into?
So currently right now, we're heavily ingrained in HubSpot, and not just from a CRM perspective, but also from a marketing automation perspective. And our website is hosted on that as well. And we did that because we're ISO 27001 certified. And so from a security standpoint, we're there. HubSpot is great because it comes with a bunch of canned reports that you can easily stand up to start tracking a lot of these data points. And the nice thing that I like about having it all in one under one roof is that you have everything from top of funnel all the way through to when they're a customer. And so you can see how the ebbs and flows and how things are working. I do use GA4 quite a bit, but I build a lot of Looker Studios, and I will be showing an example of that. Looker Studio is basically Google bought, I believe it was Data Studio a few years back, and then they just rebranded it as Looker Studio. It's essentially you can integrate many different data points to bring in the data you want and create, it's a WYSIWYG, almost like a drag and drop, where you can create your own dashboard based on the KPIs and metrics that you want to track. So I've actually built one for Manny Wallner for the city of Richland and a couple other consulting clients. So don't use it. Actually, I have created one for work too. And we do it just because HubSpot goes after sessions, but it's hard to dive in and actually pinpoint users, which I think is just as important to look at as well. I hope that answered your question.
It did. Thank you.
So why is this first? Why are we looking at this slide first versus diving into the analytics? And it's mainly, you've got all this data, you're smart, you've read it, you know what it says, but how are you running this up the hill to the rest of the leadership team to give them data that they can actually look at and with your explanation and go, okay, we're moving in the right direction. Here's more budget. Here's less budget. Here's, so there's just a multitude of different variables that can enter that equation. But ultimately, all KPIs and metrics should be aligned with the organizational goals. And I'll dive into that a little bit more with the key metrics and KPIs. But how I build my goals for my team is I work backwards where, okay, well, where's the finish line for this particular year? What kind of ARR are we looking to add for 2024? What do I need to do working backwards in order to make sure that the machine that I'm running and we're building equals that at the end of the year? And luckily, I've recently had to do that in November for my team. And so looking backwards of, okay, how healthy are we? What are we spending? What have our previous 3 or 4 years of leads and other metrics that are coming in? What's the end goal? What was our goal previously? And then starting to work out some wonderful pivot tables in Excel just to figure out, what marching orders I'm going to give myself and my team in order to make sure that we uphold our end of the bargain from a marketing department standpoint as we support the sales team and the rest of the org. It also helps, like I was saying, with budget allocation and optimization. When I was working through my budget for and my forecast for 2024, I wanted to identify that, are we spending in the right areas to help build, a sales and marketing organization that is adding to the revenue versus we're just a money pit. A lot of times marketing gets seen as kind of the overhead black hole. I don't like to run departments like that. And so this is very near and dear to me. But ultimately, you need to have the correct budget to make sure you can hit your KPIs as you move towards the end of the year. And so working backwards and having a lot of these metrics are gonna be like, okay, if my budget is this and I need to get to this in revenue and I need this many leads, you can start to work backwards of, dividing the cost of the lead, and it shows you exactly what, how many leads you've got. And then you can further work backwards of like, okay, well, I've got enough budget, or I need to find efficiencies or cut particular channels in order to get to the point I need to be at the end of the year. Leading with insights and not assumptions. I've learned that the hard way. And I think most of everybody on this call, when you're working at a higher level in business, you can't, there is always that gut feeling, especially if you've been working long enough. You're like, but it's gut is experience. That's how I attribute it. You've got gut and experience, and they equal each other. But ultimately, what data can you show, using that data to make decisions rather than guessing, being extremely targeted. So you're not chasing around your ICP and making sure that your budget is just working the way it should.
Chris,
also empowering. Yeah. What's up?
We have another question for you.
Yeah.
How do you quantify leads from analytics data?
Well, you got to be tracking them, for one. So they could be called multiple different things in different platforms. Google is going to call them conversions, and HubSpot, they actually have conversions that get turned into leads. And so you've got to make sure that whatever trigger you're doing. So, for example, if you've got a form, making sure that you've got the adequate tracking to go into the system to show that this person went to this page, they filled out a form, the form thank you page, or whatever code you've got, serves up and fires the trigger to show that a conversion actually happened there. And so, ultimately, you've got to make sure that if that is one of your KPIs you're tracking, you need to have the correct tracking codes in place ASAP, because it's going to be a lagging indicator at this point versus having historical data. I hope that answered the question.
Your leads that turn into MQLs that then get handed over to sales, do you have your HubSpot data integrated with your CRM to track in one dashboard how many of those get closed? And then what's that relationship like between your sales department and your marketing department? Sorry if I'm taking you off, but that was.
Well, I was just like, how many questions are we asking, Jess?
There's a lot of questions in there. Sorry.
I might have to ask you to repeat them. So actually, ask the first question first.
Was your HubSpot and your CRM, so whatever your primary analytics for tracking leads, are you able to track it from start to finish? And is there a platform that you have had to use to incorporate that, or is it just all through an API?
So if you're using HubSpot as the marketing automation tool, then there's some things you do need to get underneath the hood to make it work. But ultimately, because we're using them not only for our CRM, but also for our marketing automation, everything's right there. And Mo, who's my RevOps and growth manager, he's got dashboards that we built. So we can see, okay, here's the amount of leads that have come in. How many of those leads have turned to MQLs? How many of those MQLs now have turned to open deals? How many of those open deals have then turned to close won or close loss? Because close loss is actually not a bad KPI and metric to go after as well. If you're getting a ton of those, is it a product issue? Is it a pricing issue? What are some of the problems you're having from a close won perspective? Did I answer your first question?
Yes, it did. And that answered the sales integration.
Well, and actually, and so a lot of people too, they'll use Salesforce with maybe their Pardot, which is theirs. Maybe they'll integrate with HubSpot. There's Marketo. There's a lot of different ones, but it's all to that point now where a lot of them are becoming a commodity that they have to integrate and they should integrate. I mean, everybody on this phone call, I actually prefer HubSpot to even Salesforce. Some people might cringe, but I just like it because it's all in one platform and it does what we need to do. And also I don't have to pay for the Ferrari price.
Mhm.
Chris,
Ferrari's the right word.
tagging along with that, what about leads that come from that come in other than the website, like that came about because of other marketing comms? Is there a way to integrate all the lead data, regardless of where they came from, to show marketing value to make investment decisions?
So I'm probably assuming this would be more for like a trade show or maybe a local event that gets put on. And how we do, some companies are already doing this. We're going to be doing this at some of the trade shows we've got implemented this year. One way you can do it is you've got a tablet, and I'm happy to help people stand this up because we just recently redid this at our company. But there's first person integration where you can have a tablet, somebody could schedule a meeting or something right there. You could say that the meeting is an MQL and it flows then appropriately where it needs to go. But let's just say that you've got a scanner at a trade show. People are coming in and are scanning things. Or maybe you're even getting a list that of attendees from the particular trade show. One way you can do it is you can upload them, and you would probably need some special fields to denote, like this came from PRSA. Chris is talking about metrics, February 2024. And then from there, you could start to track adequately, where are they going on the funnel of these when it comes to budget time next year? Do we have any deals in place? Did any close? Is this a branding only exercise, or are we expecting to have new business? So there's a lot of other questions that can come up about that from that data. I hope that answers your question, Linda.
Yep, and one tag along with that, I'd be interested in knowing how you used the analytics for the city of Richland, a public entity versus like a for-profit organization. What is the city measuring, and how did the web analytics show these things?
Is Mandy on a call? I'm going to wait for a text message or a virtual slap from her if I'm spilling the beans. So ultimately, Mandy just asked me for her help with building the dashboard. But some of the things that we were showcasing was traffic, time on page. So average time on page, what's the bounce rate? What's the exit rate? But she also wanted to know, where are these people coming from? Now, you can't get super accurate because it goes against the current laws. But you can show, because what she wanted, what she is concerned with is outside money coming in for investment in our local economy, especially since she's in charge of business development. So she wanted to see, okay, if these folks that are coming to our website, where are they coming from? And then from there, what she was looking at is, should I start to advertise in these particular areas? Are they main hubs like, the ATL airports? Are they flying into Denver, Salt Lake City? Are they major hubs that maybe, so there's, we're still circling the wagons with that just to make sure that all the data that she needs is getting shown. But that's definitely some of the KPIs and metrics that she's looking at is what pages are popular, are landing pages that she's creating getting traffic, where are people coming from, and then using that to make other decisions from an advertising standpoint. By the way, I love all
economic development ones. That's good.
Yeah, and I love all the questions because this is how I thrive, especially at my day job. I think the last one on this one is empowering your team. So I'm big on I'm a player coach, servant leader mentality with my team. I like to look at myself as kind of a utility player because I've done everything in marketing, and so I can bounce back and forth. But I like to show them that what they're doing is making a difference, and that's from the board level down, and from down all the way up to the board level. So is what you're collecting helping to prioritize work? So first of all, sure, we've got a million things we need to do, but really these 5 things are the most important and not these 20 things. And then also, and then that feedback of showing them that what they're doing is actually making a difference. I can go back with my weekly with my boss, the CEO, and say, here's what we're doing, here's where we're going to up and to the right, this one. And then my philosophy is bad news should travel faster than good news. And so like, this is bad, this is what we're doing to fix it based on this data, and this is how we'll progress forward. And then I'll give you an update in a couple of weeks when I've got enough data to show that it's working or not working. So key metrics and KPIs. Now, this is going to be different for everyone. What I might think is the most important thing, the sliced bread, the magic Cubano that you're just so happy to be eating. Somebody else might want a tuna salad or something. Like, this is just like, what are you thinking? So the important part is, defining your marketing objectives. What does that look like, right? And what KPIs define success? It's even a matter of when you've got a lead, what's the definition of a lead? We've got leads, and then we've got MQLs, SQLs as they move down the pipe. But being hand in hand with sales, especially if you're working for a for-profit that is, a marketing engine working with a sales engine, is okay. If I hand you off this lead and it's a marketing qualified lead, is that acceptable to you? Or is that not qualified enough so then we need to look at a couple other metrics to make sure that we're giving you what I like to say, the best at bats every time versus, this guy's just a tire kicker and he just wasted my time, which is my worst nightmare for a sales rep. Also, are my metrics department only, or do they go across multiple different departments, which in my case, they do. I've got sales, I've got marketing, I've got customer success. There's finance. So there's a ton of different metrics that I need to identify and keep up to date. So when I have conversations with the other leaders in my executive team, I can adequately speak to that and go, okay, yeah, I see this is bad. I'm going to adjust this, and then let's regroup in a couple of weeks just to show that we're now moving in the correct direction. I'll pause for a second, see if anybody's got questions. Perfect. Typical KPIs. So, of course, you've got website traffic, you've got your users, you've got your sessions, your average time on page, the bounce rate. Before I go another step deeper, how many people are you pumping to your page? Of that, how many sessions, unique sessions, or how many unique users, and then how many sessions are they coming back? Maybe they're coming back to your site multiple times. How much time are they spending on your page? Now, that's kind of a loose KPI. I've had other folks in board meetings say, I don't care about that. But the reason why I like to monitor it is, okay, if we've got a landing page that is a form fill and it's only about a minute, that's because they've already made a decision that it takes less than a minute to fill out the form. But if it's a blog, or maybe, a case study, a white paper, something that's talking about our product that we're trying to drill people down and tell a story to get them to try a free trial for us, I want to monitor those. Like, is the trend that the average time is going up? Are they going down? Bounce rates are just as equally as important. If you're sending people to these pages, are they just going there and then leaving right away? Like, that's a terrible, KPI. We had or it's a terrible measurement if it's extremely high. That was one of our OKRs for Q1, is to drop it, I think 25% in to make it better. And luckily we have been, which has been a good win for my content manager. To go another step further, now you've got those KPIs they listed out, and granted, this is also, those are just some of the many that you could be measuring against. But now you've got organic versus paid. Sometimes those are going to be totally different. If you have organic, you've got somebody who is actively searching for your product on Google. They've got a direct link, and they've got a little bit higher intent because, and when you look at average time on page, bounce rate, those traditionally should be lower because they're coming organically and their intent's a little bit higher. Paid, now there is some high intent depending on the channel you're using. We're heavy on Google search, Bing search. We do use an ABM platform called Enrich. They're out of Israel. I'm not big on display. And the reason why I'm not big on display ads is because it can send a ton of traffic to your website, but it's really hard to control the quality of audience that is coming there. And so that being said, if you're doing a lot of paid to maybe the same page and you're going to split it organic and paid by the numbers, you could see that, man, paid really brings a ton of traffic to this website, but the average time on the page is low, the bounce rates are low. So what does that tell you? What it tells me is they might be back, but these are traditionally tire kickers that are just searching really quick in Bing or Google. They see the first listing, click on it. I'm like, nah, that's not what I wanted. So you could start to edit your ads where it's like, okay, I'm not showing the right information up at that time. Maybe I'm going like right for the jugular when I should be, no, let's go on a first date. We'll meet for, Shirley Temples, and then maybe next time we'll, have a Cubano sandwich and kind of just court them over time. So that can kind of tell you what information you need to show at the appropriate time, which should, in theory, drive up average time on page and drive down bounce rates. I'll take a quick breather before I keep going. Okay.
We did have one question.
Oh.
In your experience, which metrics are executives most interested in, and why are they most interested in them?
You know what? In my experience, most executives don't, at least when they're not marketing or sales, are not concerned with this granular of a deep dive. They're mainly looking at revenue influenced by marketing. How's our budget being spent? Now, that being said, my CEO, who he's also co-founder, and he's a developer, but with a master's in business. So he's really fun to work with because we can talk shop, and then he can dive in and actually start editing workflows in HubSpot. But you could talk about, well, okay, it's how you frame the story to the particular executive. If you come in and you go, okay, here's user sessions, average time on page, bounce rates, and this could go for any metric, right? It's how you frame it. Like, listen, here's what the data is. Here's how it's influencing our lead flow, our pipeline creation, and close one to ultimately to revenue. Here are the issues that we see are being created from these particular metrics, and here's what we're doing to fix the problem, or at least incrementally make little wins until we get to a big win. That's how I always like to frame it is, you come with the bad, but I already have a solution that we're going to try it. If you have another solution, then I'm happy to discuss it. I don't like just coming out with the bad news and then walking away because I don't think it's a good use of time. Did I answer your question?
That's funny. That's what I tell my daughter to do when she's got problems at the high school. Okay, here's your problem. Let's come up with a solution, honey.
Yeah. And I mean, my team, I hardly ever have to coach them. They're two of the smartest and brightest folks I've ever worked with in my life. And so it's made my life really easy coming in as a new leader for this department. It's actually the first time they've had a VP of marketing, but they half the time they always come to me and they're like, this is the problem and I'm already doing this. I'm like, thanks for fine. I know. And then if someone asks me, I can give the answer and I don't look stupid because I don't know what's going on in my department. So going on to conversion rates and goals. I mean, again, this requires the team to define what a conversion is. So we'll just be simple. Well, it's a form fill. It's a free trial. Somebody's coming to the page. Maybe they're signing up for an email subscription, or maybe there's an event coming, a PRSA event that's coming up. So defining what that conversion is, that is going to ultimately be the snowball effect to show, okay, we're having success because we've had this many conversions at this cost, and we could expect, based on our close rate, that this many people are going to be doing XYZ. And then also, are there different kinds of conversions? We're shortly we'll be implementing lead scoring. We've got case studies, we've got white papers, but for me, those are real tire kicker type actions versus if they go and they want to sign up for a free trial on our website, they're raising their hand, their hair is on fire. They want to see our system in play in real time. And so that goes all the way to the front of the line. Whereas the other ones, they maybe need a little bit more nurturing in order for them to reach out and say, I want more information. Can somebody please talk to me about the product and pricing and how it works? Also, segmenting and targeting of your audience / ideal client profile. And I apologize if I've been using too many acronyms. It's just my life. But are you using the data to help identify successful channels of how to reach your audience? This goes back to my earlier example with one of the marketing channels we were using, where we spent a ton of money. It didn't equate to hardly any revenue. And we were able to say, let's scrap all that and let's put it in the baskets that are working. And so far, I still have a job because it is working to the best of my knowledge, which makes me happy. Also, what is the data telling you about your audiences, how they're using the website, how they're interacting with your ads, how are they converting? And so you can start to dive into some of these of, okay, well, we've got this many people that are coming to the website. They're spending this much time on the website. They're moving around, but no one ever converts. Okay, well, start diving into are my CTA, my call to actions in the right or wrong place? What is the content that I'm showing on those particular pages? Is it driving that person to ultimately what I want is a form fill or some kind of action on their part to say, I want to learn more. I want to be a customer. Let's talk. Same thing with ads. And I mean that we could have a whole other discussion on that as well. But from an ad perspective, if you've got a ton of your ads, like a ton of impressions, but hardly any clicks, you may not be showing it to the right target audience. So luckily you don't pay for impressions in the Google and Bing world. Let's say you've got a ton of impressions and a ton of clicks. So now you're driving a lot of traffic to that particular landing page. No conversions. Okay, what's the deal? Am I still not showing it to the correct target audience? Maybe I'm not, as I like to say, maybe I'm not showing the right carrot or the right enticing, award after they fill out the form to get them to become a customer or just do what they need to convert. So those are some of the things that when I look at ads, what are we doing in order to make sure that they're converting? There's also cost per lead. There's a lot of other different KPIs we can keep digging in to get to a really sophisticated level of okay, well, here's our target audience. This is where they like these keywords cost a lot of money, but it's worth it because they end up turning into customers 50% of the time versus this one we get a ton of leads and then not one of them converts and it's just lost money.
Right.
So
We've got a couple of questions. Oh, I'm going to hold them till the end though. We're going to have Linda hold them till the end because we're at 12:44 and I know you want to show us that dashboard, but I know a couple of them you would have the answer to. So we'll hold those to the end, but let you get through the dashboard.
Dashboard will be really quick too. It is a sample dashboard. I wanted to honor the proprietary information for my company, but also other folks that I've worked on. But I was able to find some good examples that are actually working, that at least you get an idea of layouts and different things you can show and different charts, which is actually on this page. So making data-driven decisions. So how are you collecting the data for your use? Which channels? You've got so many different, and that's the thing too, is a lot of times, and the nice thing that what we've prepared within HubSpot is we have dashboards that kind of bring in all of this data to a centralized location. Looker Studio does that as well. So you can go through and create everything so you've got it in one location. There's nothing worse than having to bounce back and forth between 16 different platforms and quickly expect to come up with information that's going to lead to a good decision. But I mean, you've got Google Ads, you've got Google Analytics, you've got the ones that are CMS hosted, like HubSpot, for instance. If you're hosting through Pardot, sometimes even WordPress, you can get some of those data built in there. I think that they still utilize with a Google Tag Manager or a some other form of Google Analytics, but ultimately you can still read it in there. Any questions on that? I mean, went through that one really quick. Okay, so data visualization tools. So there's Looker Studio, like I've been harping on, but like I was saying, with the HubSpot reports and dashboards, it's makes my life extremely easy. But also, it's only as good as the person that's going to be creating it, right? So identifying the KPIs and metrics that you want to track, and then having it in a visual way that you'll be able to actually go through the data and make a decision. You'll be able to actually understand it. That's the biggest thing too. Like a lot of people are just like words, and then you actually are like, oh, okay, I can start to understand these things and start to dive in. So let me bring up. Everybody can still see this? Cool.
Yeah, we can see it.
This is just, now, again, this was just one that I was able to find that I could easily, in fact, I probably could go in and import it into my own Google account and then, start to modify it to my branding colors, what sections I want to have. Beautiful thing is, I mean, there's just so many different ways that you can slice and dice this and make this pizza square or, circle, donut shaped. It doesn't matter. But as you can see, you've got this particular one's really cool because it actually is tracking through your sitemap how many unique pages that you actually have on your particular website. And it doesn't matter for what role you've got in what maybe you're doing, maybe a particular role within your department. If you've got an SEO strategist, a content strategy and marketing person, they can see like, okay, we're indexing pages and they're going up. Like they're not going down. That's not really a good metrics to use though, because there's some websites that have 5 pages, like Apple, and they make a lot of money. Or there's some like ours that we've got over 2,000 pages. A lot of them are blogs, and I mean we do okay, but it's quite different. I'm not going to go through this. I'm not going to go through this in detail because it will be in my slide deck and everybody can click on it and they can kind of see for their own and poke around it. But, this is just some of the things that you can go through, and it's pretty simple. Once you get your data connected, so you get your GA4, you've got your tag on your website, you're already getting the data. Now that's probably step one. You got to make sure that you're tracking your data adequately, but making sure that once you've got the data, you can then have pie charts and line charts. You can show, whatever metrics are going to help you be the best you can be and help you make the decisions you need to make in order to lead your team and the company. You can definitely create whatever you want. So going back to here, be honest, I was actually a little worried that I wasn't going to be able to fill up this time, but I think as Susan and Jess know, I can talk a lot. So I found no problems with that. So lay on the questions.
All right. So we have one from earlier. How can analytics help the content side of the house improve? Specifically, other than just knowing they need to improve, like how do they know, and what do they need to know?
Yeah, that's a really good question. In fact,
And
Sarah
that came
Gordon.
from Susan. So,
Oh, hi, Susan. Well, Susan, I think you, Nick, and I and Steph will have to go out for martinis and bang bang shrimp soon. Oh, she went off camera. She didn't want to see me.
Sorry, I was trying to turn my mic. Yeah, I'm not a data. I am a content person, so I'm like, how do we know the specifics?
How I've been working through with my content manager is starting to identify what are some of the pieces of content we have that are popular. So starting to look at that and be like, okay, well, we're a safety company and we've been writing content on this. Well, no one goes to this. This doesn't rank. This doesn't do this. These rank really well. So then that kind of takes me down to another level. I'm like, okay, well, is it because we don't have enough content on this particular page? Is it not addressing the correct targeted keywords for my ideal client profile? Is it how competitive is it for the particular industry or company that I'm writing for? So is there just already a lot of content? And so that's definitely one layer that I will look at just to spotlight, like, okay, well, we've written this content. Let's start to look at the different subjects that we can kind of spoke off of this particular one to continue to build what I like to, I mean, a lot of people call this, but it's a pillar strategy or cluster topic where you can just keep to, you've got your central topic and then you can spoke off and keep making stronger and stronger. Other ways too would be average time on page, Susan, bounce rate. So if you've got people coming to that page, maybe they're not spending a lot of time reading it. Maybe they're landing there and they're landing, they're quickly going off. That could open a whole can of worms of like, okay, well, is it organic? Is it paid? Is it, did we showcase it on LinkedIn? And so we put a bunch of traffic to it, but no one was really interested because it was just kind of a link. And maybe, so there's different ways you can start to dive into it. For identifying different topics, SEM Rush is great. There's Google Trends, which they may be, I think they're still around because they've been sunsetting a lot of things. But you can go in there too, and you can start to dig into. I'm like, okay, well, here's my ideal client profile. Here are the topics that they're generally interested in. But what are some of the side topics that they're looking at? Like, what are some of the other things that people search for? Search terms is another one too, where you can see like, okay, well, this is a particular keyword that I'm interested in, but they found my article by searching for this. I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay. Maybe I either have sections about that on this particular page, or maybe I have some other supporting documents that will internal link or point them to that particular piece of content.
So, a few more questions.
Yeah.
Can you give some examples of marketing and/or communication changes that leaders have made as a result of your metrics-based recommendations?
Ooh, man, is what I'm saying not smoke and mirrors, and actually works. God, I gotta sing for my supper. Okay, so one example would be that's a good question. Now I'm sitting here like I've just failed my entire career and I have nothing to show for it. I would definitely say one that we've done in the last 3 weeks was identifying lead quality. So how many of the MQLs that are coming in are turning into a meeting? So we've got a system where somebody comes in, they fill out a form for a free trial. And this is now, they come in, they fill out a form for a free trial, but then they get automatically taken to a page where we explain, in order to get your free trial, you need to have a discovery call. You need to talk with somebody so we can understand exactly the circumstances you're in, the problems you want to solve, what modules in our platform you're looking to add, to solve your problems, or maybe what you know is actually not right and we can offer something different. So then we make them, schedule on a form. Ultimately, what was happening is we were round robining our leads, and they were going to everybody. Well, account executives should not be dealing with tire kickers. It's a waste of time. They're hired to qualify, open deals, and close deals. That's it. We have a BDR and an SDR team. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to funnel everything to go through to our SDRs in order for them to qualify it, this is pretty standard in a lot of the business world. But to have them qualify it, and then when it is qualified, they can set up a meeting with the appropriate AE again through round robin, and then the meetings go as planned. We've been able to, I think, last month, and this is kind of maybe an average, we were probably at about between 15 and 17% would be meetings scheduled. Just in the last 3 weeks, we're up to 40%. And I don't see that changing at all. And it's just a matter of just changing the processes and how things are flowing. Everybody's happier. It's giving the SDRs more at bats, which ultimately SDR, their job is they want to be an AE one day, where you can only get there by having the chops and the experiences and the exposure. And so this gives them more exposure, and it's just been a win-win. We've actually seen an uptick in pipeline. Too soon for close one, just because we've got a longer sales cycle, but ultimately I still have a job, so we're good.
Okay, we're running out of time. We have a couple more questions. First is, how can Google Analytics help the nonprofits website redesign?
With the website redesign?
How can Google Analytics help with a nonprofit's web redesign?
I would start with the why. So why are you doing why are you doing the website redesign? What are the goals that you're looking to accomplish? What I would say is if your goals are to attract more users to sign up or donate for the nonprofit, I would say, first of all, make sure you've got tracking on there right now, because you're going to have to do some kind of a comparison to say, did this work or did this not work? So our traffic was here, we made these changes, and now we can see that the traffic is going in this particular direction. So I would always start with the why of like, okay, I joked with my first day on the job, every marketing leader, when they jump in, it's like, we need a new website. I don't like to do that. My boss ironically said we need a new website, so I had to go to work, and we're working with Tori at Brandcraft right now. But it's a little shout out to Tori. But I immediately go, well, what's the why, and then you can work backwards to identify clear KPIs of what would be designated as a success. I hope that answered the question.
Okay,
Starting with the why always does.
Yep.
Linda, is your mic working? We were having a hard time hearing you there for a sec.
So
I'm gonna ask the last question because we're running out of time here.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's 2 minutes left.
2 minutes left. So this is the last question, Chris. Do you use surveys or other research tools in addition to analytics to answer some of the questions for management? And what are they?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so Typeform's great. SurveyMonkey's great. We absolutely use from an internal standpoint as well, just to kind of keep that anonymous veil of people to speak their mind. Like, here's a good example. I wanted to prioritize with my sales team what we were going to create from an asset standpoint, what they thought was important for them to prioritize, for them to do their jobs. Training was number 2. This blew me away. Sales enablement. I'm really big on sales enablement. That's the kind of marketing department that I like to run. 1 was video, 2 was training. Jess, I'm sorry, because Jess is working on me from a branding perspective. 6 was LinkedIn banners and other social media things. So it was like dead last. But Typeform, SurveyMonkey, but I absolutely will use that. We're actually sending it out from a product standpoint, and these are 2 separate ones, and a customer success. Apologize. But we'll be gauging our customers of what features do you want to see? How can we get better? And then also from our customer success side, Raciel, he's our trainer. He's asking what topics they want to see from a webinar perspective. So it's not necessarily taking it up the funnel or down the funnel to leadership, but it's more, what can we do to keep getting better? So then customers are stickier, we're seen as a thought leader, et cetera, et cetera.
Wonderful. Well, we are at the 12:59 mark here on the West Coast. So I'm going to wrap this up. And Chris, thank you for joining us today, and everyone who joined us for your lunch hour or other hours of the day, if you're from different parts of the country. On behalf of the Mid-Columbia chapter of PRSA, thank you. And we will be sending out Chris's slide deck as well as the recording for today's session. So if you have any questions, feel free to give us an email or follow us on all of our social media channels as well. So thank you all for joining us today, and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
And reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect with everybody.